The smell hit me first, a sweet, unfamiliar perfume in our bedroom. He was stripping the mattress, fresh sheets in hand. "You're sleeping on the floor tonight," he announced to the closet. "Lena is using the bed." My husband of 16 years wasn't just leaving, he was replacing me. As I stood there, shattered, my 13-year-old daughter appeared in the doorway. She looked at him, then at me. "Don't panic, Mom," she whispered. "I already handled it." My name is Brinley Diaz. I'm 38 years old, and for the last decade, I've been the lead patient coordinator at the Heritage Wellness Center. It's a job I love, mostly. It's order and care and empathy, all packaged into neat, 30-minute appointment blocks. I live in Ridgeview, Colorado, a town that prides itself on its quiet, its mountain views, and its unshakable sense of community. My life was built on that quiet. It was predictable. It was safe. Until tonight. The drive home from my late shift was normal. The streets were empty, dusted with the first light snow of the season. I was tired. The kind of tired that settles deep in your bones after 12 hours of managing anxious patients and frazzled doctors. All I wanted was a hot shower and the familiar comfort of my bed. I turned my key in the lock just after 11 p.m. The house was dark, except for the glow from our bedroom at the end of the hall. I dropped my keys in the ceramic bowl by the door, the one we bought in Santa Fe on our 10th anniversary. The house was too quiet. Mia, our daughter, should have been asleep for hours, but even the usual creaks and groans of the old house seemed muffled, held in suspension. The smell hit me before I even reached the hallway. It was floral and sharp, aggressively sweet, like a cloud of cheap perfume had detonated in the master bath. It was not my scent. I wore sandalwood, something subtle. This was an invasion. I pushed open our bedroom door. Eric was there, but he wasn't in bed reading. He was standing over the mattress, his back to me, methodically pulling the corners of a fresh, clean sheet taut. Our wedding quilt, the one my grandmother made, was crumpled on the floor by the closet, discarded. He was making the bed, at 11 o'clock at night, with sheets I didn't recognize. They were satin, a deep, ugly burgundy. Eric, he didn't startle. He just finished smoothing a wrinkle before he turned. Not to look at me, but toward the closet, as if addressing the air. "You're sleeping on the floor tonight," he said. His voice was flat, empty, the same tone he used to tell me we were out of milk. "Lena is using the bed." The words didn't compute. They hung in the air, thick and poisoned by the perfume. Lena, a name, not a person I knew. My mind tried to catch up, tried to place the name, tried to understand the sentence. Sleeping on the floor. "What did you say?" I whispered. My coat was still on. My bag was sliding off my shoulder. This time, he did look at me, and that's when I saw it. The complete and total absence of the man I had known for 16 years. His eyes were flat, like polished stones. There was no guilt, no shame, not even anger. There was nothing. He was a stranger. I said, "You can take a pillow from the closet. Sleep on the floor," he repeated, articulating every word as if I were stupid. "Lena is tired. She'll be here any minute, and she needs the bed." It wasn't the cheating. The realization hit me like a physical blow, a punch to the solar plexus that stole my breath. He had been cheating. The smell, the new sheets, the name, it was obvious. But this was something else. This was not a panicked confession. This was not a moment of weakness. This was a public execution. He was not just replacing me. He was demoting me. He was ordering me, the mother of his child, the woman who had paid half the mortgage on this very room for 16 years, to sleep on the carpet like a dog, so his mistress could be comfortable, in my bed, in my home. "Eric, who is Lena? What is happening?" My voice shook, but I was suddenly cold. The exhaustion from my shift evaporated, replaced by a vibrating, icy dread. He sighed, an exasperated sound, and turned away from me to plump the new pillows. "I'm moving out. Brinley, I was going to tell you in the morning." "You're moving out," I repeated, numb. Yes, but Lena drove all the way from Denver, and she's exhausted. She's not used to roughing it. The floor won't work for her. It's just for tonight. We'll be gone by noon tomorrow. He said it so reasonably, so logically, a simple logistical problem that had a simple solution: my humiliation. He wasn't just leaving the marriage. He had already left. He had been gone for weeks, months maybe. This wasn't a conversation. It was an eviction notice. He had already processed the grief, the anger, the separation. He was just tidying up the loose ends. I was a loose end. My eyes scanned the room, desperate for something familiar, something that made sense, and I saw them. By the dresser, a large black suitcase I'd bought him for his 40th birthday, its handle extended. Next to it, a worn brown leather briefcase, and on the dresser, next to his discarded wedding ring, was a thick manila envelope, bulging with what looked like official documents. He had planned this, every detail, the packed bags, the legal papers. He hadn't just decided to leave tonight, he had decided to tell me tonight. And this entire grotesque theater, the new sheets, the order to sleep on the floor, it was intentional. It was the final act. He wanted to break me before he walked out the door. A small sound came from the hallway. I turned. Mia was standing there, her thin frame silhouetted by the dim hall light. She was 13, all limbs and sharp angles, and a mind that always moved faster than anyone else's. She wasn't crying. Her face, usually so expressive, was perfectly, unnervingly still. She wasn't looking at me, crumpled and betrayed in the doorway. She was looking at her father. Her gaze was not one of fear or sadness. It was analytical. It was an assessment. She watched him straighten the burgundy pillow, her eyes tracking the movement with a cold, adult focus. She looked at the suitcase. She looked at the envelope. Her eyes flicked back to him. "Mia, honey, go back to bed," Eric said, his voice softening for the first time. It was a false, paternal warmth that made my stomach turn. "Your mother and I are just talking." Mia ignored him. Her eyes finally moved to meet mine. The shock and shame and rage must have been written all over my face. I felt my knees weaken. I was about to collapse, right here on the threshold of my own ruined life, but Mia's gaze held me. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head. It wasn't comfort. It was a command. Then, she stepped closer. So close I could feel the warmth from her skin. Eric had turned his back again, fiddling with the lamp on the nightstand. Mia leaned in, her voice so quiet, it was barely a breath, a secret that passed between us in the poisoned air. "Don't panic, Mom," she whispered. "I already handled it." A chill, sharper than the Colorado snow outside, ran straight down my spine. It was the words, it was the tone, it was the absolute certainty in my 13-year-old daughter's voice. It was not the voice of a child. It was the voice of someone who had just moved a chess piece, and I knew, in that gut-twisting moment, that whatever was happening, the story Eric thought he was writing was not the one that was about to end. I didn't sleep on the floor. I couldn't. I also couldn't stay in that bedroom, listening to the springs of my own mattress creak under the weight of my husband and a stranger. The smell of that perfume felt like it was coating my lungs. I ended up on the sofa, a stiff, 30-year-old floral print that offered no comfort. I didn't sleep. I just watched the living room clock, its quiet tick marking the minutes of my life's demolition. When the first gray light of dawn filtered through the blinds, I heard the shower upstairs. Then, later, the murmur of voices, a low laugh, not Eric's, hers. I stayed frozen, wrapped in an old Afghan, until I heard the front door open and close. He was taking her to breakfast, probably, showing her off in our town. Only then did I move. My body was stiff, my mind a fog of humiliation and white-hot anger. Mia's door was closed. I went to the kitchen, my hand shaking as I reached for the coffee maker. The machine whirred, a sound of normalcy in a world that had tilted off its axis. Mia's words from last night echoed in my head. I already handled it. Handled what? What could a 13-year-old handle? I had dismissed it as the bravado of a terrified child trying to protect her mother, but a different, colder fear was settling in. Mia's calm was abnormal, and Eric's preparedness the suitcase. The envelope spoke of a long-term plan, a plan that, I suddenly realized, must involve money. I left the coffee brewing and went to the small desk in the corner of the kitchen where we kept the household laptop. I sat down, the worn cushion of the chair familiar, and opened the screen. My fingers fumbled on the keys, logging into our joint bank account. The summary page loaded. I stared. The numbers were wrong. They had to be wrong. This was a glitch, a display error. Our joint checking account, the one my paycheck had been deposited into just last week, the one I used to pay the mortgage and the utilities and the car insurance, had a balance of $289.12. I clicked on the savings account. We called it the emergency fund. It was supposed to have at least $15,000 in it, painstakingly saved over 8 years. The balance was zero, a perfect, clean zero. My heart wasn't just pounding, it was slamming against my ribs, a trapped bird trying to escape. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." There was one more. The custodial account for Mia, her college fund. It was linked to our main profile for easy transfers. I clicked the link. My grandmother had left Mia that money. We had added to it. It was supposed to be approaching $70,000. It was empty. $0.00. He hadn't just taken our money. He had taken our child's future. He had stolen from my dead grandmother. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. I grabbed my phone from the counter, my fingers slipping on the screen as I dialed the bank's customer service number. The automated voice was cheerful. Asking me to say or enter my account number, I choked it out. After an agonizing series of prompts, a human voice came on the line, a polite, detached woman named Stephanie. "Yes, Mrs. Vaughn," she said, her voice smooth. "I can see those transactions. They aren't. I didn't make them," I stammered. "This is theft. Someone has hacked our account. You have to reverse them. You have to stop them." There was a polite pause, the click of keys. "Ma'am, according to our records, these transfers were not external. They were initiated from a recognized device using your husband's, Mr. Eric Vaughn's, login credentials and two-factor authentication. The funds were moved to another account at a different institution." But all of it. "The first transfer was made 3 days ago, on Friday," she continued, her voice clinical, as if reading a weather report. "The final transfer, which cleared out the custodial savings account, was processed yesterday afternoon, as Mr. Vaughn is a co-owner on all 3 accounts. The transfers are all perfectly valid. There is no hold or dispute we can place from our end. The funds are gone." Valid, legally valid. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. The receiver clattered into its cradle. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't just a man leaving his wife for a younger woman. This was a heist, a meticulously planned financial execution. He had been planning this for days, maybe weeks, while he was sitting across from me at dinner, while he was asking about my day, while he was kissing his daughter goodnight. He was systematically bleeding us dry. My salary alone couldn't cover the mortgage, not even close. The payment was due in 10 days. The car payments, the insurance, the electricity. We were ruined. He hadn't just left me. He had pulled the entire foundation of our lives out from under us, leaving me and his daughter in a free fall. The sound of a spoon scraping a bowl made me jump. Mia was at the kitchen table, eating cereal. She was dressed for school, her backpack sitting by her feet. She looked up at me, her eyes clear. She must have heard the phone call. She must have seen the blood drain from my face. She did not cry. She did not look scared. She just put her spoon down and asked, her voice quiet, "He took my money too, didn't he?" I could only nod, my throat closing around a sob. "The college fund," she stated. It wasn't a question. "I thought he would. That's why I tried to lock it." "What? What do you mean? Mia?" Before she could answer, we heard the key in the front door. Eric walked in, his face flushed from the cold, smelling faintly of coffee and maple syrup. He was alone. He was heading for the stairs, presumably to get his suitcase, when he saw me standing by the desk. "Eric," I said. My voice was a low, dangerous thing I didn't recognize. He stopped, his hand on the railing. "Brinley, I'm just getting my things." "You robbed us," I said. He had the audacity to look annoyed. "Don't be dramatic. We're getting divorced. The assets will be split. I just consolidated them. You stole our daughter's college fund." He winced, a tiny, fleeting crack in his armor. "It's an investment. Brinley, Lena knows about these things. It'll grow faster. You'll get it back. Eventually." "Look at her," I commanded, gesturing to Mia, who was still sitting at the table, watching him. "Look at your daughter and tell her why you are abandoning her. Tell her why her future doesn't matter." He turned, and for a moment, his eyes met Mia's. She just stared at him. No tears, no pleading, just that cold, level assessment. He couldn't hold her gaze. He looked away, turning back to me. "She'll understand someday," he said. The empty platitude of a coward. He started up the stairs. A moment later, he came back down, rolling the black suitcase behind him. He didn't look at either of us. He walked to the front door, pulling on his expensive winter coat. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. "A piece of advice," he said, looking at the doorframe. "Don't try to make this legal. Don't call a lawyer. It will be messy, and you will lose. I have everything documented. Just let me go, and I'll make sure you and Mia are fine." A threat. He was threatening me. After having stolen everything, he opened the door, and the cold November air rushed in, swirling around my ankles, and then he was gone. The door clicked shut, the deadbolt engaging with a heavy, final thud. The silence he left behind was deafening. The house suddenly felt huge, hollowed out. I was alone, with a 13-year-old child and $289. I sank into the kitchen chair, the sob I'd been holding back finally ripping out of my chest. My head fell into my hands. I felt a small hand on my shoulder. Mia, she was standing beside me, but she wasn't comforting me. She was waiting. I looked up at her, my face wet, my vision blurry. "It's okay to be sad, Mom," she said, her voice still unnervingly calm, as if she were the adult and I were the child. "But you need to stop crying now. We have work to do." She walked over to the laptop, closed the banking window, and shut the lid. "He thinks he's gone," she said, turning back to me. "He's not." "Mia, honey, the money is gone. The bank said it was legal." "What he did was legal," Mia interrupted, her eyes hardening. "What he's planning to do isn't—" She picked up her backpack and slung it over one shoulder. "I have to go to school. I can't look suspicious. Tonight, after your shift, I'll show you. I told you I handled it. He took the money, but I've already locked him out of everything else. And I have copies. I have copies of everything." My shift at the wellness center was a blur. I moved through the day on autopilot, a ghost in my own body. I rescheduled appointments, updated patient files, and smiled politely, all while the reality of my morning played on a screaming loop in my head. $0, valid transfers. Don't make this legal. Every time the phone rang, I flinched, expecting it to be the bank, the mortgage company, or Eric, calling to twist the knife further. I was a 38-year-old professional, a mother, and in the span of 12 hours, I had become a victim, totally paralyzed. Mia's words from the morning felt distant, unreal. "I have copies. I've locked him out." It sounded like a child's fantasy, a desperate attempt to feel power in a powerless situation. I was the adult. I was the one who was supposed to fix this, and I had no idea how. When I finally pulled into the driveway at 7:30 p.m., the house was dark, just as I'd left it. But it wasn't my home anymore. It was a crime scene, a box of betrayal. I found Mia in her room, not on her bed crying, but sitting upright at her desk, her laptop open. The only light came from the screen, casting long shadows across her face. She was perfectly composed, as if she had just been finishing homework. "Hey, honey?" I started, my voice cracking with a forced, maternal softness. I had rehearsed this. I was supposed to comfort her. I was supposed to sit on her bed, hold her, and tell her that even though Dad was gone, we would be okay. I needed to see her break, to cry, so I could feel like her mother and not a fellow victim. How are you? How are you feeling about all this?" Mia didn't turn around. "I'm fine. Mom," her voice was steady. "You need to see this. Mia, sweetie, we don't have to. We can just talk. It's okay to be sad." "We need to talk," Mia agreed, finally turning her head. Her eyes were sharp, focused, but not about feelings, about assets. I walked closer, my stomach tightening. This was not the conversation I had prepared for. "What do you mean?" She turned her laptop monitor so I could see it. The screen showed her desktop, a cluttered mess of school icons and game shortcuts. In the center was a folder labeled Art Project. "I don't think I have the energy for a school project right now." "Mia," I said, my voice weary. "It's not," she said. She double-clicked the folder. It opened, revealing not pictures of paintings or history reports, but 4 neatly labeled subfolders: Eric Transfers, Lena Hart Shell, Holmes F.L. Vaughn Credit Pulls. My breath caught. "Mia, what is this? Where did you get this?" "I got it from Dad's computer," she said, her tone flat, like she was explaining a math problem. "I didn't have to hack anything. Dad is lazy. He uses the same password structure for everything. His email, the bank, his iCloud, even his fantasy football league. It's always our anniversary date and the dog's name. He just changes the last number. It took me 10 minutes to guess the right combination for his email." I stared at the screen, my mind trying to process the implication. "How long?" I whispered. "How long have you been watching him?" Mia finished my sentence. "About 2 months. I knew something was wrong. He started clearing his browser history every night. He never used to do that, so I put a keylogger on the desktop." What?" "It's just a simple script. Mom, it records every keystroke. That's how I got his new passwords when he changed them last month." She clicked the folder labeled Lena Hart. A picture filled the screen. A smiling blonde woman, probably in her late 20s, posing in an office setting, a screenshot of a company directory. "Lena Hart," Mia said, her voice devoid of emotion. "She's a junior accountant at West Trail Investments. That's Dad's investment firm. She handles client books." My blood ran cold. The woman Eric was bringing into my bed wasn't just some random affair. She was a colleague. "He's been seeing her for at least 6 months, Mia continued, clicking back and opening the Eric Transfers folder. It was filled with screenshots of bank statements. "He's been siphoning small amounts for a while, 500 here, 1,000 there. But he got sloppy. He was moving it to an account under her name. I have the account number." Then, she opened a file that was a long, scrolling PDF. It was an email thread. "They've been planning this exit for weeks," Mia said. "They called it Operation Fresh Start." I leaned in, my hands shaking, and read the words my husband had written to this woman. "We'll clean out the accounts the day before I tell her. Timing is crucial. She'll be too emotional to act fast. By the time she even thinks to call a lawyer, we'll be in the keys, and the money will be secure in the new shell account. She won't be able to touch it." I felt sick. The casual cruelty, the clinical planning, clean out the accounts, as if he were taking out the trash. "The house," I managed to say. Thinking of the Florida reference, Mia was already there. She clicked the Shell Homes FL folder. A real estate listing appeared, a bright, vulgar waterfront house in the Florida Keys, price $750,000. "They're buying a house," I breathed. "They're trying to," Mia corrected me. "But they weren't just using the money he stole. They were using you." She navigated to the last folder. Vaughn Credit Pulls. It contained a PDF of a loan application, a pre-approval for a mortgage. Dad applied for the pre-approval 2 weeks ago. He used his information, and yours. He co-signed your name electronically. What? He can't. My credit. That's identity theft. Yes. And fraud, Mia said. Your credit score is almost 800. His is barely 650. He couldn't get the loan on his own. He needed to leverage your good name to secure the house, which he was planning to put entirely in her name. The horror of it settled on me. A physical weight. He wasn't just leaving me with nothing. He was actively using my identity, my financial history, my name, to build a new life with her, on a foundation of our stolen money. I backed away from the desk and sank onto the edge of Mia's bed. The room was spinning. Mia, I whispered, looking at this 13-year-old girl who was calmly detailing the systematic destruction of our lives. My God, you've been watching this. For 2 whole months. Why didn't you tell me? Mia finally swiveled in her chair to face me. Her eyes, in the glow of the laptop, were not the eyes of a child. They were hard, ancient, and deeply, deeply weary. Tell you what, Mom, she asked, her voice quiet but razor-sharp. That Dad was a monster, that he was stealing from us. You wouldn't have believed me. You would have confronted him. You would have tried to fix it. He would have just hidden it better. I had to wait. I had to wait until he made his move, so I could make mine. What move? Mia. He won. He has the money. The bank said it's gone. He has the cash, Mia corrected me, standing up. He doesn't have the assets. And he doesn't have his identity, or yours, or mine. A chill, the same one from last night, ran through me. What did you do? Mia? I told you, she said. I wouldn't let them use us. They want to buy a house with your credit fine. She turned back to the laptop. I went on to all 3 credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, using your login information, which Dad, in his brilliance, had saved in his browser's autofill, and I froze your credit, all 3 bureaus. Then I froze mine. She looked at me over her shoulder. A thin, terrifying smile touched her lips. That pre-approval he got 2 weeks ago, it's worthless now. The loan is dead. When the bank does the final hard pull right before closing, they're going to hit a wall of ice. No loan, no house. I just stared at her. My mind completely blank. The shock was so profound. It had burned through the grief, through the anger. I was in a state of pure, unadulterated awe. This wasn't my child comforting me. This wasn't a girl reacting to her father's abandonment. This was a counter-operation, a campaign of retaliation, planned and executed by a 13-year-old from her bedroom, right under her father's nose. I felt a strange, bubbling mix of emotions, a profound, overwhelming gratitude, a surge of fierce pride, and a deep, unsettling fear. I was afraid for her, but I was also, just a little, afraid of her. Mia, I said, my voice trembling. This is incredible, but honey, this is dangerous. This is legal. You could get in trouble. What he did was illegal. Mom, what they did. He left us with $289 and expected us to roll over. He expected you to cry and me to be a kid. He underestimated us. She closed the laptop. The screen went black, and the art project was once again just an icon. The campaign was hidden. I remembered her words in the hallway, the ones that had chilled me. I already handled it. Freezing the credit was step 1, Mia said, as if reading my mind. He doesn't know about that yet. He'll find out when he tries to close on the house. Step 2 is making sure Lena can't help him. After all, she added, her voice dropping. She's an accountant. Stealing money is her job. I wonder if her bosses know how good she is at it. My mind was still stuck on the credit freeze, on the dead loan. It was a brilliant, defensive move. But Mia was already talking about offense. What do you know about Lena's job? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I almost didn't want to know. Mia didn't answer. Instead, she walked over to her bed, knelt, and lifted the corner of her mattress. Taped to the wooden slats was a thin, black, spiral-bound notebook, the kind you buy at a drugstore for $5. She pulled it free and handed it to me. It was not a diary. I opened it. The first page was dated 2 months ago. It was a log, written in Mia's tiny, precise, all-caps printing. October 3rd, 8:44 p.m. Dad logged into Gmail from IP address 72.21.91.29. Logged out 8:51 p.m. October 3rd, 9:15 p.m. FaceTime call to contact Lena Hart. Duration 58 minutes. October 5th, 7:02 a.m. Dad logged into Wells Fargo joint. Viewed summary page. No action. On and on it went. Page after page. A meticulous, terrifying record of his digital life. The IP addresses. The login timestamps. The exact dates and amounts of the small transfers he'd made. The duration of their video calls. She had been logging his betrayal, minute by minute, while I was sitting downstairs watching television with him. This is, I couldn't find the word, obsessive. It's evidence, Mia corrected me, her voice sharp. Dad's a narcissist. He thinks he's the smartest person in every room. He assumed I was a kid obsessed with TikTok, and you were a wife who was too tired to notice. He got arrogant, and his girlfriend got sloppy. She turned back to the laptop and navigated to the Lena Hart folder. It wasn't just the company headshot. There were other files, spreadsheets, client ledgers. Lena is an accountant at Westrail, Mia said, her voice taking on the quality of a prosecutor laying out a case. Dad's been complaining for a year about how strict their new compliance rules are, but Lena found a way around them. She works with the legacy accounts rich, old clients who've been with the firm for decades and don't check their statements closely. She opened a spreadsheet. It was a dense sea of numbers, but Mia pointed to 2 columns, side by side. This is the real ledger, she said, pointing to the left. This is the one she sends to the client. I looked. The numbers were almost identical. Almost. She's been skimming, Mia said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Tiny amounts, 0.25% here, a late fee waiver there that she actually pockets. She's been smoothing their books, rounding down their dividends and diverting the fractions of cents to an outside account. It's almost untraceable unless you're looking for it. Over dozens of clients. It adds up. I figure she's pulled in at least $40,000 in the last 6 months. I felt a wave of nausea. How did you get these? These are on her work server. She was stupid, Mia said, clicking a screenshot that showed a cloud drive directory. She was working from home, using Dad's laptop. She must have synced her local work folder to his iCloud drive by accident. I found it when I was looking for his bank statements. She was committing wire fraud on our home network. My hand went to my mouth. This was no longer a messy divorce. This was a federal crime. This was multiple federal crimes. Eric hadn't just shacked up with a colleague. He'd shacked up with a felon. Mia, I said, my voice shaking. This is a bomb. What are we going to do with this? We can't just have this. Mia looked at me, and the last shred of her childhood seemed to evaporate from her face. What do you mean, do? She asked. I already sent it. The air left my lungs. You what? Last night, after Dad told you to sleep on the floor, while you were downstairs, I was busy. She explained it with a chilling simplicity. She had packaged all of it the side-by-side spreadsheets, the log of her outside account, the dates, the clients. She'd put it in a zip file. She'd created an anonymous, encrypted email account. She'd routed it through a series of public proxies, making it untraceable. I sent it to the head of compliance at Westrail Investments, Mia said, pulling up the company's executive directory. This guy, his email was on their website. I also sent a copy to the firm's general counsel. I was speechless. I was staring at a 13-year-old girl who had just in a single keystroke, professionally executed a woman she had never met. And that's not all, Mia continued, her voice gaining momentum. The house in Florida, the fraudulent loan application. You froze my credit, I stammered, trying to keep up. You said the loan was dead. It's not just dead, Mom. It's under investigation. She explained. After sending the compliance package, she had sent a second email. This one went to the mortgage fraud department at the bank in Florida. She had attached the loan application with my forged e-signature. She'd attached the email thread where Eric and Lena discussed cleaning out the accounts. She wrote a simple, anonymous tip. I am an employee at West Trail Investments. I have reason to believe this loan application from Eric Vaughn is fraudulent, submitted with a forged signature, and funded by money stolen from a custodial college fund. The co-applicant, Lena Hart, is also under internal investigation for financial misconduct. So the loan application isn't just frozen because of my credit, I realized. It's a red flag, a giant, waving, legal red flag. That's when the terror finally punched through the shock. My panic wasn't for our finances anymore. It was for my daughter. Mia. I gripped her arms. My voice was suddenly loud in the quiet room. Stop. Just stop. Do you realize what you've done? This isn't a game accessing her work files. Sending them. That's a crime. You could be the one who goes to jail, not them. What were you thinking? Mia looked down at my hands on her arms, and then back up at my face. Her expression didn't waver. There was no fear, no regret, just a cold, hard clarity. I was thinking, she said, her voice dropping to a steely whisper, that he stole my college fund. I was thinking he used your social security number to commit fraud. I was thinking he told you to sleep on the floor of your own house. She pulled her arms free, not violently, but with a firm, dismissive strength. He declared war. Mom, not me. He just assumed I was a casualty. He assumed I was a child who would cry. He's wrong. She stood up, closing the laptop. The room plunged back into darkness, lit only by the hallway light. You already froze the credit, I said, my mind reeling. That was enough. That stopped them. No, Mia said. That wasn't enough. That was defense. You don't win a war by playing defense. You win by cutting off their supply lines. They can't buy the house. And as of about... She glanced at the clock. 9 hours ago, Lena Hart is probably having a very bad day with her compliance department. Her access will be revoked. Her accounts will be frozen. She can't help him. The partnership is over. He just doesn't know it yet. I looked at my daughter, the girl who, just last year, I had to remind to brush her teeth. The girl who cried when she got a B+ on a math test. She was gone. In her place was this strategist, this cold, brilliant, terrifying stranger. My fear shifted. It wasn't just that she could get in trouble. It was that she wouldn't. It was that she was too good at this, that this rage, this need for surgical, impersonal revenge, would swallow her, that I had lost my husband and my daughter in the same night. So what now? I whispered, my entire body trembling. We call the police. Mia shook her head. No, the police are messy. They'll ask questions we don't want to answer. We don't have to do anything else. We've set the traps. She picked up her math textbook from her desk and opened it. Now, we just wait, she said, her eyes scanning a page of equations. They're in Florida, probably celebrating. They think they're free. They think they won. They'll find out about the credit freeze first. When the loan is denied, Eric will panic. He'll call Lena, and Lena will be too busy being audited to answer. She looked up at me, her face a mask of calm. When people panic, Mom, they get stupid. They make more mistakes, and I'll be waiting for those, too. I backed out of her room, my hand over my heart, as if to keep it from beating out of my chest. She didn't look up again. She had returned to her algebra, as if she hadn't just dismantled 2 adult lives before breakfast. I stood in the dark hallway, and a horrifying thought, colder than any other. Settled into my mind, I was no longer sure I understood the child I had given birth to, and I was no longer sure who I was supposed to be protecting. The house became a vacuum. Eric was gone, but his presence lingered like a stain. The physical space he occupied was now a hollow echo that amplified his absence. But his things were still here. His running shoes were by the back door. His jacket was still slung over the kitchen chair he always used. His toothbrush was still in the holder. A casual, insulting reminder of the life that had existed just 48 hours ago. Every object was a landmine. I was fine 1 minute, numbly making a grocery list I couldn't afford to buy. And the next I was paralyzed, staring at the indentation his head had left on the sofa cushion. The third morning after he left, I went to make coffee, and my hand brushed against his mug. It was a heavy ceramic one, dark blue, with a chip on the rim that I'd always told him to be careful of. The sight of it, so ordinary, so his, shattered me. The full weight of the 16 years, the shared jokes, the arguments, the anniversaries, the sheer history we had built, crashed down on me. I slid to the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinets, and wept. I cried for the man I had loved, for the future I had planned, and for the profound, violent betrayal that had vaporized it all. In the middle of my sob, I heard the click of the toaster. Mia was standing at the counter, fully dressed, her hair brushed. She was buttering a piece of toast, her movements economical and precise. She glanced at me on the floor, then at the clock. It was 7:15 a.m. Her routine had not varied by a single minute. "Mom," she said, her voice neutral. "You're going to be late for work if you don't get in the shower." I stared at her. "He's gone, Mia. Everything is gone." "I know," she said, taking a bite of toast. "But we're not, and you still have a job. For now, we need that income." She finished her toast, rinsed her plate, and put it in the dishwasher. "I'll be out front for the bus at 7:40. She slung her backpack over her shoulder and walked out, leaving me on the cold linoleum, my tears drying in stunned silence. The days were a fog of panic and survival, but the nights were worse. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie in that vast, empty bed. I had thrown the burgundy satin sheets in the trash, but the mattress still felt contaminated, and I would listen. The sound started around 10 p.m., after I'd gone to bed. Click, click, clack, click, click, pause, click, clack, 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 click. It was the sound of Mia, in her room, typing. It was not the frantic, random tapping of a teenager playing a video game or chatting with friends. This was something else. It was rhythmic. It was patient. It was methodical. It was the sound of a campaign. It was the sound of my 13-year-old daughter, hunched over a keyboard in the dark, methodically dismantling her father's life. That sound, more than the silence, kept me awake, my heart pounding with a mix of gratitude and raw terror. I was drowning, and I needed an anchor. On my lunch break, I locked my office door, my hands trembling, and called Nora Blake, my counterpart at the Heritage Center. Nora was practical, sharp, and most importantly, not part of my Ridgeview life. The moment she picked up, her cheerful, "Hey, Brinley, what's up?" broke the dam. "He's gone, Nora," I choked out, the words tumbling over each other. "Eric left. He cleaned out everything, the savings, the checking. He took Mia's college fund, all of it. He left me with under $300, and he's gone." There was a stunned silence on the other end. Brinley, my God, how? I told her everything, the woman, the demand to sleep on the floor, the bank's confirmation, the mortgage payment I couldn't make. I was sobbing into the phone, the humiliation and fear pouring out of me in a raw, uncensored stream. That bastard," Nora said, her voice low and furious. "Okay, Bryn, okay. First, you're going to call a lawyer. Today. Second, you're going to—" She was interrupted. I hadn't even realized I was home. I must have been pacing into the hallway. Mia's door was ajar, and the sound of her typing was clearly audible. Click, clack, click, pause, click, clack. "What's that noise?" Nora asked, her focus shifting. "Is Mia homesick? Is she playing that? What's it called?" "Fortnite." "No," I said, my voice suddenly quiet. I stared at Mia's door. "She's just on her computer." "Sounds intense," Nora said. "Good. Maybe it's distracting her." But I knew it wasn't a distraction. It was the whole point. Nora heard a kid playing a game. I heard a general moving troops. The sound wasn't intense. It was purposeful. The pauses were for thought. The flurries were for execution. I felt a sudden, sharp disconnect, as if I were floating above my own life. I was on the phone, falling apart. My daughter was in her room, building a fortress. I felt a chasm open between us, the chasm between the one who grieves and the one who acts. That night, I tried to bridge it. I heated up some leftover soup, a peace offering, and knocked on her door. "Mia, honey, you need to eat something." "I'm fine. Mom, I ate. I'm coming in." I pushed the door open. She was at her desk, just as I'd pictured, bathed in the laptop's glow. But as the door swung open, she did something that stopped me cold. With a single, fluid motion, she slid a printed worksheet over the left side of her screen and maximized a Word document on the right. By the time my eyes focused, all I could see was an algebra assignment and an unfinished essay on the grapes of wrath. She had been ready for me. She had anticipated my arrival and had the decoy prepared. She wasn't just hiding her actions, she was managing me. "Just finishing homework," she said, her eyes not leaving the screen. I put the soup on her nightstand. The air in the room was electric with her focus. "Mia," I said, "we need to talk about what you're doing." "I am doing my homework, Mom." Her voice was polite, final. I backed out of the room. I felt obsolete. I was the mother, the adult, the protector. But I was miles behind. I was worried about the mortgage payment. While my daughter was waging a multi-front war involving wire fraud and credit bureaus, I was the one grieving a marriage. She was the one reversing a grand larceny. My fear for her solidified, taking on a new, sharp-edged shape. This wasn't normal. A child, especially one as sensitive as Mia had always been, should be broken. She should be crying. She should be raging. This cold, robotic efficiency. It was a defense mechanism, but it was too strong. What if the wall she'd built to survive this was too thick to ever come down? What if, in saving us, she was losing herself? I went back to my laptop, but this time I didn't open the bank account. I opened Google. Therapists in Ridgeview, specializing in adolescent trauma. Child psychologist. Grief and family betrayal. What is emotional dissociation in teens? I scrolled through lists of smiling, professional faces, reading bios about play therapy and cognitive behavioral approaches. I was trying to find a name, a solution, a way to pull my daughter back from the brink I was terrified she was on. I was trying to fix her. I was so lost in my search that I didn't hear her come up behind me. "What are you doing?" I jumped, slamming the laptop shut as if I were the one hiding something. "Mia, God, you scared me." She looked at the closed laptop, then at me. She knew exactly what I'd been doing. Her gaze was not unkind, but it was impatient. "You're wasting time, Mom," she said. I'm worried about you. Honey, it's too much. You're not processing." "I am processing," she said. "I'm processing the fact that Dad is a criminal and we have no money. What you're doing is sitting in the dark and feeling sad. We don't have time for that." She placed a stack of papers on the table next to me. "I'm going to bed," she said. "You should read these. You need to file as soon as possible. It's the first step to legally separating your finances from his." I looked down. It was a thick packet, neatly printed. The top page read, "Ridgeview County Court. State of Colorado petition for dissolution of marriage." She had downloaded the divorce forms. I stared at the packet, a flush of hot, profound shame rising in my neck. She had researched therapists. She had executed a complex counter-espionage campaign. She had logged his crimes, and now she had downloaded the legal paperwork for my own divorce. She was right. I was sitting in the dark, feeling sad, and she was, once again, 10 steps ahead of me. "Good night, Mom." "Mom," she said, and walked back to her room. I picked up the papers. The shame was still there, but it was mixed with a bitter taste of acknowledgement. My daughter was right. It was time to stop crying and start fighting. The call came 5 days after he left. 5 days of suffocating silence, of me walking through the house like a ghost, starting the divorce paperwork, and trying to calculate how many shifts I'd have to pick up to keep the lights on. It was Saturday, just after noon. I was at the kitchen sink, scrubbing a casserole dish, my hands raw from the hot water. Mia was at the table, laptop open, supposedly working on a history paper. My phone, resting on the counter, buzzed. I glanced at it. "Eric." My heart didn't leap. It didn't ache. It just went cold and heavy in my chest. I dried my hands on a towel and picked it up. "What do you want, Eric?" His voice was not the calm, condescending baritone of the man who had evicted me from my own bed. It was high, thin, strangled with a panic so raw it vibrated through the phone. "What did you do?" he shrieked. Not a question, an accusation. "I have no idea what you're talking about," I said, my voice flat. "Don't you lie to me. Brinley, don't you dare lie to me. The money. The bank. They've flagged the new account. It's frozen, all of it. They're saying suspicious activity, and they won't release the funds." I felt a slow, cold satisfaction creep up my spine. Suspicious activity. Mia's anonymous tip. It had worked. "That sounds like a personal problem, Eric," I said, turning back to the sink. "It gets worse." He was almost sobbing now. "Lena, they suspended her. Her firm, she went in this morning, and her keycard didn't work. They called her into HR and told her she's on administrative leave, pending an investigation." An anonymous tip. Brinley. An anonymous goddamn tip. He was connecting the dots, but he was drawing the wrong picture. "Who did you hire?" he demanded. "Who the hell did you hire? You can't afford a hacker. How did you do this?" "I'm washing dishes. Eric, I don't know what to tell you." "This isn't a joke," he screamed. "This isn't a messy divorce. This is corporate espionage. You could go to jail for this. You have any idea what you've done? Hacking a private firm, interfering with accounts. That's a federal crime. Brinley, you'll lose Mia. They'll give her to me." The threat hung in the air. Just like his threat to make it messy when he left, it was his go-to move when cornered. Go for the throat. The old me, the wife from a week ago, would have dissolved. I would have been terrified, pleading my innocence, but the new me just felt tired of him. I glanced over at Mia. She was watching me, her face impassive. She had heard the screaming. She held up one finger, then beckoned me closer. I walked over to the table, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to Eric rant about federal prison and destroying his life. Mia tilted her laptop screen toward me. It was his email, his personal Gmail account. She was in it, live, right now, as I watched. A new email popped up in his inbox. The subject line read, "Urgent SunTrust account. Access restricted. Further action required." Mia's eyes met mine. They were perfectly, chillingly calm. She moved her finger on the trackpad, her cursor hovering over the new, bolded email. She tapped the trackpad, selecting the message. Through the phone, Eric's rant cut off mid-word. "What? What was that?" he said, his voice dropping from rage to a small, confused whisper. "Did you hear that, my laptop? It just made a sound, a ping, as if..." His voice became muffled, as if he'd turned away from the phone. I heard him yell, "Lena, did you touch the computer? Did you get a notification? Someone is in my email. Right now, someone is in my email." I heard a shriek in the background. The panic on their end was no longer a sound. It was a physical thing I could feel. Mia just leaned back in her chair. She had just remotely poked the man who thought he was a predator, just to watch him jump. I took a shaky breath, pulled myself together, and put the phone back to my ear. "Eric," I said, injecting a note of false, frightened confusion into my voice. "What on earth are you talking about? Hacking federal crimes? I'm standing in my kitchen. I don't know how to hack anything. I don't understand. This is not a coincidence. Brinley. The bank. The firm. It's all happening at once. This is you." "A coincidence," I said, letting my own anger finally surface. "You mean the fact that your accountant girlfriend, who is an expert at smoothing books, got caught? That sounds like she's just bad at her job. And maybe the bank should be suspicious of an account that suddenly has $70,000 of stolen college fund money in it. That sounds suspicious to me." "Eric," there was a dead, cold silence on the other end. "If you think someone hacked you," I pushed on, my voice getting stronger, "you should absolutely call the police. Right now. Go to the Florida Police Department and file a report. I'm sure they would be fascinated to look at your bank statements, and Lena's, and that fraudulent mortgage application you signed with my name. You should do that. Eric, call them." The silence stretched. He knew, and I knew, that he was legally paralyzed. He couldn't report a crime while he was in the middle of committing 3 of them. When he finally spoke, the rage and panic were gone, replaced by the oily, desperate sound of a salesman. Brinley, look," he stammered, his voice dropping. "You don't understand. Okay, I didn't steal it. Not really. I borrowed it. It was an investment. A sure thing. Lena, she had this access. A private fund. We were going to double it, maybe triple it. In a month I was doing it for us. Bryn, for the family, to make us secure. I was going to put it all back, plus more. You wouldn't have even known." The lie was so pathetic, so insulting. It almost made me laugh. He was still trying to con me. He really thought I was that stupid. I was about to hang up, to just cut the connection and let him rot in the mess he'd made. But Mia was standing up. She was holding her hand out, for the phone. My first instinct was to say no, to protect her, to keep her out of this ugly adult conversation. But one look at her face told me I wasn't in charge. I wasn't protecting her. She was protecting me. I pressed the speaker button and handed her the phone. "Hi, Dad," Mia said. Her voice was as clear and cool as a winter morning. "Mia." Eric's voice was a confused squeak. "Mia, honey, put your mother back on the phone. This is adult stuff. You don't—" "It stopped being adult stuff the second you logged into my college fund." "Dad," Mia interrupted, her voice perfectly level. "I told your mother it was an investment. I was going to pay it back." "Were you?" Mia asked, and her voice was almost conversational. "Because investments don't usually get transferred to a shell account registered under Lena Hart's employee identification number. That's not an investment. Dad, that's called money laundering." I watched Eric's face. Though I couldn't see it, I could picture the blood draining from it. The silence on the line was absolute. Mia continued, and I realized she was reading from the black notebook, which was open on the table. "On October 12th, at 2:31 in the afternoon, you transferred $69,850 from my custodial account to the LH Holdings account at SunTrust Bank. I have the PDF of the transfer confirmation. I have the IP address you used to do it. I also have the log of your FaceTime call with Lena 30 minutes later, where you said, 'The package is secure.'" She paused, letting the words sink in. I could hear a faint, ragged breathing from the speaker. "You didn't borrow it, Dad," Mia stated, her voice like ice. "You stole it. You stole my future to buy a house with her, and you used Mom's social security number to do it, which is a felony." "Mia, please," Eric whispered. It was no longer a shout. It was a plea. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't a con man. He was just a pathetic, terrified little boy who'd been caught. "Mia, you don't understand. I love her. We can fix this. I can get the money back. I just need you to tell me what your mother did. Tell me how to unfreeze the accounts. Please, honey, I'm begging you." I watched my daughter's face. She listened to her father beg for his life, and she did not blink. Her expression didn't soften. The mask didn't crack. "You chose her, Dad," Mia said, her voice flat and final. "You chose her over Mom. You chose her over me. You chose her over my education." She leaned forward, her eyes locked on the phone in her hand. "Now, you get to live with that choice." Her thumb moved and pressed the red end call icon on the screen. The line went dead. The kitchen was completely silent. Except for the quiet hum of the refrigerator, Mia placed the phone back on the counter, closed her laptop, and picked up her history book. My hand was shaking. I dropped the phone onto the kitchen counter, the plastic clatter echoing loudly in the silent room. I leaned against the sink, my knees weak. I had just listened to my husband, a man I had known for half my life, beg his daughter for mercy, across the room. Mia had already turned back to her desk. She picked up her pencil and looked back down at her open textbook. She had just systematically, and with surgical precision, destroyed her father's escape plan, and now she was back to solving quadratic equations. The dissonance was terrifying. She was a child doing homework, but she was also a cold-blooded operator who had just won a major skirmish. I had to know. I had to see a crack. "Mia," I said, my voice hoarse. She didn't look up. "Yeah, that was your father. You weren't sad. You didn't feel anything." She finally put the pencil down and looked at me. Her eyes were not angry or triumphant or even satisfied. They were just clear. "Sad," she repeated, as if the word were a foreign concept. She seemed to genuinely consider it for a moment. "No, I don't feel sad, Mom." "Then what do you feel?" I whispered. "I feel justified." That word, justified, scared me more than her anger ever could have. Anger is hot, emotional. It burns out. Justification is cold. It is logical. It builds. I knew, in that moment, that I was out of my depth. This was no longer a family crisis. This was something else. I wasn't just dealing with a grieving child. I was dealing with a strategist, and it was breaking my heart. The following Tuesday, I took the afternoon off from the center. I told Mia we had a joint checkup, a lie she saw through instantly but didn't challenge. The office of Dr. Alana Pierce was quiet, furnished in calming shades of gray and soft blue. Her online biography had been specific, specializing in gifted and high-achieving adolescents navigating high-stress family dynamics, trauma, and emotional betrayal. She seemed like the only person in Ridgeview who might understand. Dr. Pierce was warm, sharp-eyed, and didn't patronize. I sat in a chair in the corner, twisting my hands, expecting Mia to be sullen, silent, or defiant. I was wrong. Dr. Pierce leaned forward. "Mia, your mom told me a little about what's going on at home. She said your dad left. Can you tell me about that? From your side?" Mia sat up straight, and for the next 20 minutes, she recited the entire story. She started with the change in her father's browser clearing habits 2 months ago. She detailed her use of the keylogger. She listed the affair with Lena Hart. She explained the discovery of the financial skimming at West Trail Investments. She described, in detail, the fraudulent loan application using my Social Security number. She recounted the systematic emptying of our bank accounts, including her college fund, down to the exact dollar amounts, and then she detailed her counter-operation, the credit freezes on all 3 bureaus, the anonymous data packet sent to West Trail's compliance department, the fraud report sent to the mortgage bank in Florida. She concluded with the phone call from Saturday. She delivered this entire catastrophic narrative with the flat, precise, unemotional affect of a CEO giving a quarterly earnings report. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She did not once use words like sad, angry, or betrayed. She presented facts, actions, and consequences. When she finished, there was a heavy silence in the room. I was horrified. I wanted her to break down, to weep, to show the doctor the wounded child beneath the armor. Doctor? Pierce just nodded slowly. After a few minutes, she asked Mia to step into the waiting area. The moment the door clicked shut, I leaned forward, the words spilling out. You see what I mean. She's not there. She's broken. She's completely shut down. She's not feeling anything. Dr. Pierce held up a hand, her expression gentle but firm. Brinley, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your daughter is not broken. I stared at her. What? She is not broken, Dr. Pierce repeated. She is, in fact, one of the most profoundly resilient children I have ever encountered. She is not dissociating. She is not numb. She is controlling. I didn't understand. Controlling what her environment, Dr. Pierce said, leaning forward. Brinley, in the span of a few days, Mia experienced a profound, destabilizing trauma. Her entire world, her safety, her future, her trust in her father, it was all vaporized. She cannot control his actions. She cannot control his betrayal. She cannot get the money back right now. So, her mind, her highly intelligent, logical mind has shifted its entire focus onto the only things she can control: the consequences, the damage, the outcome. She let that sink in. Mia hasn't shut down. Brinley, she has gone to war. The problem is, you are still treating her like a victim of that war. She's not. She's the general. I felt a cold wave of realization. She was right. You want her to be soft, Dr. Pierce said, her voice kind. You want her to cry, so you can comfort her, so you can be the mother, but that isn't what she needs right now. She needs an ally. She needs a soldier who will follow her plan. She paused, and her next words hit me like a physical blow. The question here isn't whether Mia will be okay. She is actively, brilliantly, building her own okay. The question is, can you handle a child who has taken control? Her words echoed all the way home. Can you handle a child who has taken control? I realized I hadn't been. I had been grieving the loss of my marriage. Mia had been managing the logistics of our survival. I found her that evening at the kitchen table, the laptop open, not to a game or homework. It was an Excel spreadsheet. What's that? I asked, my voice subdued. It's our budget, she said, not looking up. I'm projecting our finances. She turned the screen. It was a sea of red. Your take-home pay is roughly $3,400 a month. Our mortgage, with taxes and insurance escrow, is $2,800. The car payment is $300. Utilities, water, and gas average $400. Before we buy food, or toothpaste, or bus fare, we are already operating at a $100 deficit. I just stared. She was right. I've already canceled all the streaming services, the cloud storage, and your gym membership. That saves $92. It's not enough, she said. We have, based on the last mortgage statement, maybe 6 weeks before we are in default. You need to call the lawyer tomorrow and file an emergency motion for exclusive use of the house and for immediate spousal and child support. If Dad's assets are frozen, or if he refuses to pay, we have to sell. Sell. The word felt like ash in my mouth. We have to sell the house, she repeated, her voice void of emotion. I've already looked at 2-bedroom apartments in the district, on the bus line, so we can sell the car. It's the only logical move if support isn't established within the next 30 days. She was so practical, so cold. It was both a marvel and a horror. I was still mourning the loss of my home. She was already shortlisting apartments. My fear for her solidified, taking on a new, sharp-edged shape. This wasn't a child. This was a 30-year-old corporate turnaround specialist in a 13-year-old's body. The next day, I saw her working on a new document. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a Word document, meticulously formatted. The title read, What to Do When a Family Member Steals Your Money, A Guide for Minors. It had chapters. Chapter 1. Securing Your Identity. How to Freeze Your Own Credit. Chapter 2. Documenting the theft screenshots, logs, and why you never delete an email. Chapter 3. Understanding Your Legal Rights. Even as a kid. "What is this, Mia?" I asked, gesturing to the screen. "It's for Ms. Gable," she said, naming her school guidance counselor. "I'm emailing it to her. She should have this, in case this happens to other kids. They should know what to do." And that's what finally broke me. It wasn't the theft. It wasn't the affair. It was this profound, chilling, magnificent act. She wasn't just fixing her own trauma. She was trying to create a protocol to fix everyone else's. She was taking her specific, terrible pain and turning it into a shareable, weaponized solution. I felt a surge of pride so fierce it almost knocked me over, and right behind it, a fear that was just as strong. My daughter was becoming an adult in the middle of a battlefield, and she was learning to fight, not to feel. I looked at her, typing away, creating a manual for survival, and I couldn't help but wonder, what happens when she's 20 or 30 and someone else hurts her? A boss who passes her over, a friend who betrays her, a lover who breaks her heart. Will she talk about it? Will she cry? Or will she just quietly, methodically, and completely erase them? The first domino fell, not with a bang, but with a piece of internal gossip. Nora called me, her voice a low, excited whisper. "Bryn, are you sitting down?" "My sister-in-law's cousin works in compliance at a firm in Denver," she said. "She's hearing rumors. West Trail Investments. It's a 5-alarm fire over there." I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. "What kind of fire?" "Nora." "An audit? A surprise one. They officially suspended a junior accountant this morning. Name's Lena Hart." My breath hitched. "What? What did she do?" "They're saying client account irregularities, major ones, accounts not matching, funds diverted. Apparently, some anonymous source dropped a fully documented file on their compliance department. They're saying it's the cleanest case of embezzlement they've ever seen. They're auditing her entire client list. Mia's bomb. It hadn't just landed. It had detonated, vaporizing the target. The second domino fell an hour later. This one hit me directly. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. An area code from Florida. "I know what you did, you jealous bitch. You think you're smart. You just destroyed my life. You destroyed my career. I'm suing you. I'm suing you for slander, for defamation, for everything. Eric never loved you. He told me you were pathetic. I'll make sure everyone in Ridgeview knows what a crazy, vindictive harpy you are." It was her, Lena. She was cornered, and she was lashing out with the only weapons she had left: insults and empty threats. I showed the text to Mia when she got home from school. My hand was shaking. "She's threatening me," I whispered. "She's going to sue. What if they trace it back to us? Mia. What if they trace it to you?" Mia glanced at the screen, her expression one of mild boredom, as if she were reading a dull weather report. "Let her try. Mia, this is serious. They can trace emails. They can trace IP addresses." "Mom," she said, finally looking up from her laptop. She sounded like a patient teacher explaining a simple concept. "I didn't just send an email. The tip was routed through a multi-layer proxy. The anonymous account I used was purchased with a cryptocurrency voucher. The voucher was bought with cash at a supermarket in Boulder. There is no trail. There is no IP address. There is nothing. She is screaming into a void. She's just noise." She dismissed the woman who had tried to ruin us with a wave of her hand. Then she focused on a different part of the equation. "I was wondering where he was," she murmured. "Who, Eric?" "Yeah, he hasn't used his bank card since the account was frozen. He hasn't tried to log into his email since that call. He's probably in a hotel with her," I said bitterly. "No," Mia said, her eyes fixed on her screen. He's not. He's parked behind the old Kmart on Highway 28. I stared at her. How in the world do you know that? He logged into his Facebook account on my old tablet 3 years ago to check something. He never logged out. He forgot. She turned the screen to me. It was a Find My Device map, showing a small blue dot. The tablet's GPS pings his location every time he opens the Facebook app on his phone, which he does about every 5 minutes. He's been there for 2 days. My husband, the man who had worn suits to work, the man who demanded fresh ground coffee, the man who had ordered me to the floor so his mistress could be comfortable, was sleeping in his car. He can't rent a hotel, Mia analyzed, her voice a flat monotone. His cash is frozen by the bank. Lena's cash is frozen by her firm. They have no liquidity. But his credit cards, I stammered. Mia clicked a different window. It was my credit report, the one she had set up alerts for. He tried. He's desperate. I looked closer. A new inquiry. From 2 days ago, Florida Auto World. He tried to buy a car. He tried to finance a car, Mia corrected. After the house loan was denied. But before the bank froze the cash, he was trying to secure a hard asset he could drive away with. But look, she pointed to the application status. Application denied. And the reason, co-applicant credit file inaccessible. Security freeze in place. He used my social security number again, I whispered. The violation felt fresh, sharp. Even after he knew, he was still trying to use me. He's a parasite. Mom, he can't survive on his own, Mia said. He's trapped. They're both trapped. They have no money, no credit, no house, and Lena has no job. They're at the bottom. So, what now? I asked. We just win. We let them sit in the car until they're arrested. No, Mia said, shaking her head. The cold strategist was back. People like Dad, they don't just give up. They don't take responsibility. They double down. They're cornered, which means they only have 2 moves left. She held up one finger. 1, they go silent. They try to disappear, wait for the legal mess to blow over, and try to access their frozen money later, or, she held up a second finger. 2, they attack. Attack how? I asked. Like Lena's text. Exactly. Threats, lies, intimidation. They'll try to paint us as the criminals. They'll try to scare you into backing down, into reversing the things you supposedly did. I looked at her, and I finally understood the terrifying, brilliant clarity of her plan. I saw the entire chessboard. You want them to attack, I said, the realization hitting me. Mia looked at me. If they stay silent, Mom, it's a long, slow legal fight over frozen assets. But if they attack, she said, if they try to threaten us, if they try to file a countersuit, it gives us a reason to send the rest of the package. The rest? I yelped. I thought you sent everything. I sent the compliance department what they needed to start an audit on Lena. I sent the bank what they needed to flag the loan. I didn't send anyone the full picture. I didn't send them the black notebook. I didn't send them the key logs, the emails about you, or the definitive proof that Eric was a willing and active partner in Lena's skimming. I just gave them enough rope. Her strategy was breathtaking. She hadn't just set a trap. She was goading her prey, pushing them into a new one. The attack came that night. Not a text, an email, sent to my personal account. The subject line was capitalized. You need to stop this now. It was from Eric, Brinley. I don't know what kind of sick game you're playing or who you hired, but this ends. This is illegal. You have illegally accessed private data. You have destroyed Lena's career. You have locked me out of my own money. This is harassment. This is a criminal conspiracy. I am giving you one chance. You will call off your hacker. You will contact the bank and Westrail and retract your false statements. You will unfreeze my access to my accounts. If you do not, I am hiring a lawyer and I am filing for full custody of Mia. Based on your clear mental instability and criminal actions, and I'm coming to the house on Saturday to get the rest of my things. You will not stop me. It was a tantrum, a desperate, terrified, impotent roar. He was threatening to take Mia from me, the daughter he had abandoned and stolen from. He was threatening to counter-sue, as if we were the ones who had done something wrong. My hands were shaking with pure, unadulterated rage. I was about to type a furious, scorching reply. "Don't," a quiet voice said from the doorway. Mia had read the email over my shoulder. I turned, expecting to see her afraid, expecting to see the 13-year-old girl finally crack under the threat of losing her home and her mother. She wasn't scared. She was smiling, a tiny, cold, satisfied smile. "This is it," she said. "This is what he's threatening us. He's coming here." "Good," Mia said. Her voice was pure ice. "That's exactly what we want. We need them to show up in person." I didn't understand. Why would we want him here? It's dangerous. "Because anonymous tips are one thing," Mia said, walking past me and into her room. "A recorded confession is another. He thinks he's coming here to intimidate us. He's not." I followed her. She was at her desk, setting the stage. She pulled a small black device from her desk drawer. "Digital audio recorder," she said. "Battery lasts for 48 hours. We'll put it under the kitchen table." She went to her bookshelf and adjusted the small webcam she used for school. She angled it toward her bedroom door, giving it a perfect, clear view of the hallway and the front entrance. "It's motion-activated," she said. "Records directly to a secure cloud server." Finally, she turned to her printer. She opened the art project folder on her laptop. She selected a new, consolidated file. She clicked print. The machine whirred to life, spitting out page after page. I watched the stack grow. Page 1. The email thread. "Clean out the accounts. She'll be too emotional." Page 2. The fraudulent loan application for the Florida house. My forged signature circled in red. Page 3. The new fraudulent application for the car. Page 4. The bank transfer, showing $69,850 leaving her college fund. Page 5. Lena's spreadsheets, the 2 columns. Client versus internal, showing the theft. Page 6. The log from the black notebook, detailing every call, every transfer. It kept printing for 5 solid minutes. She was creating a physical dossier, a thick, heavy folder of pure, undeniable fact. She tapped the stack neatly on her desk, then slid it into a simple manila folder. "Let him come." "Mom," she said, looking up at me, her eyes reflecting the printer's green status light. "He thinks he's coming here to threaten us. He's not." She held up the folder. "He's coming here to see the evidence." I replied to his email with 3 words. 1 p.m., Saturday. The next 48 hours were the longest of my life. I was a nervous wreck, my stomach in a constant, acidic knot. I kept looking at the front door, imagining him breaking it down. Mia, on the other hand, was a picture of absolute calm. She was preparing for battle. Saturday morning, she began to set the stage. The digital audio recorder, small and black, was taped beneath the lip of the kitchen table, its tiny blue light indicating it was on and recording. The webcam in her bedroom, angled down the hall, was active. The kitchen table itself was clean, except for 2 items, her laptop and the manila folder. I watched her open the laptop. She didn't open her homework. She opened a fresh email draft. She typed in 3 addresses, all of which made my blood run cold. 1 for the Colorado State Financial Crimes Division, 1 for the IRS White Collar Crime Unit, 1 for the SEC's Enforcement Division. The subject line was simple. Data packet Vaughn Hart. Financial Crimes West Trail Investments. She then attached the entire art project folder, the key logs, the spreadsheets, the bank transfers, the audio file of Eric's panicked phone call from Florida, which she had apparently recorded. The file uploaded. A small blue paperclip appeared. All that was left was to press send. "That's the leverage," she said, seeing me watch. "He thinks he's threatening us. He doesn't realize we're threatening him." At exactly 1 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened it. The man standing on our porch was not the man who had left. The arrogant, composed husband who had demanded my bed for his mistress was gone. This man was a wreck. He hadn't shaved in days. His beard a patchy, greasy mess. His expensive coat was deeply wrinkled, as if it had been balled up and used as a pillow. He smelled of stale coffee, body odor, and the unmistakable, desperate scent of a car interior that has been slept in. His eyes were bloodshot, darting, and filled with a frantic, hunted energy. "We need to talk," he growled, pushing past me into the house. "Hello, Eric," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "We're in the kitchen." He strode in, his eyes landing on Mia, who was sitting calmly at the table, her laptop open. "This stops," he snarled, slamming his hand on the table. "Right now, I don't know who you hired. Brinley, but you call them off. You tell them to undo it, unlock the accounts, retract the statements to Westrail, now." He was still looking at me. He still thought I was the one who had done this. He still thought Mia was a child. I stayed silent, just as we had rehearsed. I leaned against the counter and folded my arms. I just looked at him. "Did you hear me?" he yelled, spittle flying from his lips. "You're committing a crime. I'll—" "Sit down, Dad," Mia said. Her voice, so quiet and cold, cut through his tirade like a surgeon's blade. He stopped, his mouth open, and stared at her. "What did you say?" "I said sit down," she repeated, gesturing to the chair opposite her. "We're not yelling. We're having a discussion about your financial liabilities." He looked from her to me, his confusion momentarily overriding his rage. He didn't sit, but he stopped shouting. "You don't get it, do you?" Mia continued. She reached for the thick manila folder at her elbow. "Mom didn't hire anyone. I did this." She pulled the first page from the folder and slid it across the table. "This," she said, "is your email conversation with Lena Hart, sent from your work computer during business hours, on October 30th. This is where you discuss cleaning out the accounts and how I would get over it, and Mom would be too emotional to act. Your words." Eric stared at the printed page. His face went pale. Mia slid the second page on top of the first. "This is the fraudulent mortgage pre-approval for the $750,000 house in the Keys. You submitted it on November 2nd. That's Mom's forged electronic signature. That's a felony." She added a third page. "This is the second fraudulent application. For the car. After the first one was denied, you tried to use her social security number again. After you had been locked out. That's attempted identity theft. That's a second felony." She added a fourth page. It was the bank transfer. "This is the confirmation, dated November 12th, for $69,850, moved from my custodial college fund to Lena's shell account. That's theft from a minor." She added a fifth page, and a sixth, and a seventh. It was Lena's client ledger, the side-by-side comparison, the evidence of embezzlement. "And this," Mia said, tapping the final page, "is the proof that you were knowingly using those embezzled funds, which makes you a co-conspirator to wire fraud." Eric backed away from the table, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. He looked at the stack of papers. This wasn't a hacker. This wasn't some invisible digital threat. This was a physical prosecutorial file, complete with timestamps, IP addresses, and his own words. "How?" he whispered, looking at his 13-year-old daughter. "How did you—" Mia looked up at him, her face a mask of cold disappointment. "You thought I was a kid who would cry." "Dad," she said, her voice quiet. "You were wrong. I'm the kid who checks your browser history." He looked like he was going to be sick. That was my cue. I pushed off the counter. "You have one way out of this. Eric." He looked at me, his eyes wide and terrified. He was no longer a predator. He was prey. "This is what you're going to do," I said, my voice shaking but hard. I slid a different set of papers across the table. The divorce petition. "You are going to sign this, today. You are agreeing to an uncontested dissolution. You are agreeing to pay child support, and you are agreeing to a settlement that restores every single cent you stole from Mia's college fund. I pointed a trembling finger at him. You will never, ever use my name, my credit, or my social security number again. You will walk out of this house, and you will disappear from our financial lives forever. And in exchange, he choked out, Mia answered for me. She tapped her laptop screen, where the email draft was still visible. In exchange, she said, this data packet, which is addressed to every financial authority in the state, does not get sent. We keep this file. He stared at the laptop. He stared at the folder. He understood. His terror was instantly replaced by a final, sputtering surge of narcissistic rage. This is blackmail, he shrieked, his voice cracking. You're blackmailing me. You little bitch. This is insane. You can't. Mia didn't even flinch. She simply reached under the table, brought the small black digital recorder up, and placed it on the table in front of him. The small blue light was glowing steadily. This isn't blackmail, Dad, she said, her voice clear and loud for the microphone. This is a negotiation for the restitution of damages caused by your financial crimes. I believe that is the correct legal framing. The word crimes hung in the air. Eric looked at the recorder, then at Mia, then at the folder. He was trapped. He was checkmated, and just as he was about to speak, as his entire world collapsed in on him, his phone rang. The shrill, electronic sound made us all jump. He fumbled in his pocket, pulling it out. His hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it. The screen read, Lena, his only ally, his partner, his fresh start. A look of desperate relief washed over his face. He thought she was calling to save him. He thumbed the accept button. Lena. Her voice was not the low, seductive murmur I had heard in my head. It was a hysterical, ragged scream, so loud we could hear it from across the table. Eric, oh my God, Eric, they're not just auditing the firm anymore. They're auditing me, my personal accounts, my car. They just put a lien on my condo. They've frozen everything. Eric. His face went from pale to the color of ash. They're talking about criminal charges, she sobbed. They're talking to the DA. You have to do something. You have to help me, Eric. Eric. He didn't answer. He slowly, mechanically, lowered the phone from his ear. He looked at the papers on the table. He looked at the glowing blue light on the recorder. He looked at the draft email on the laptop screen. He looked at his daughter. He understood. His escape plan wasn't just ruined. His fresh start was over. His partner was going down, and his 13-year-old daughter was standing at the gate, holding the keys to his cage. His hand, still holding the phone, trembled as Lena's voice continued to pour out of it, a stream of raw, uncut panic. He wasn't listening. He was staring at the pile of paper on the kitchen table, the physical evidence of his total, catastrophic failure. He was trapped. The woman on the phone was the anchor, and the girl at the table was the executioner. Slowly, mechanically, he pressed the button on the side of his phone, cutting Lena off mid-sob. The silence that rushed back into the room was heavy, absolute. He had just severed his last lifeline. I took a step forward. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence. Do you remember, Eric? He looked up at me, his eyes blank, hollowed out. 9 days ago, I continued, my voice even. You stood in our bedroom. You told me to sleep on the floor. You told me, your wife of 16 years, to take a pillow and sleep on the carpet, so she could be comfortable in our bed. I let the memory hang in the air, the pure, distilled humiliation of that moment. Today, you're standing in our kitchen, I said, gesturing to the chair he had avoided. And today, you're not giving orders. You're going to sit at this table, and you are going to sign these papers. You are going to sign them so that your daughter, the one whose future you stole, can go to college. You are going to sign away your rights to this house, and you are going to commit to paying back every cent you took from her. I pointed toward his phone. As for the person you chose, your fresh start, you can't help her. She's on her own. And I said, my voice dropping. Don't care. He looked at the papers, then at me. A last pathetic flicker of defiance sparked in his eyes. You can't. This is illegal. What you did? The hacking? I'll go to the police right now. No, you won't, Mia said. She swiveled her laptop so the screen faced him fully. The email draft was open, maximized. The list of recipients at the Colorado Financial Crimes Division, the IRS, and the SEC was clearly visible. The thick data packet was attached, ready. You're right, Dad, she said, her voice like glass. You could go to the police, but this email is ready to send. The moment you walk out that door without signing, the moment I think you're going to try anything. I press this button, and by 1:30 p.m., every financial authority in this state, and at the federal level, will have your entire criminal history, your emails, your bank transfers, Lena's ledgers, the audio recording of your panicked phone call, everything. She leaned forward, her eyes locking on his. So you have a choice. You can sign these civil papers, and we can handle this as a quiet family matter of restitution, or you can refuse, and I will personally ensure you and Lena Hart are both facing a federal criminal investigation by sundown. The fight didn't just leave him, it was sucked out of him, leaving a collapsed, empty shell, his shoulders slumped. The man who had stood so tall in my bedroom, radiating arrogance, was gone. This was a defeated, middle-aged man in a wrinkled coat, reeking of desperation. His hand, shaking, pulled the chair out from the table. The sound of the legs scraping against the tile was unnaturally loud. He sat down. I slid the divorce agreement in front of him. I put a pen on top of it. He stared at it for a long, empty moment. Then, with a defeated sigh that seemed to empty his lungs, he picked up the pen. His signature, which had always been a bold, confident scrawl, was now a weak, spidery mark. I pulled that paper back and slid the next one in front of him. The financial stipulation, the agreement to pay the full child support, and the separate, binding agreement for the restitution of the $69,850. He signed that, too. He dropped the pen. It rolled, hit the manila folder, and stopped. It was done. As his hand lifted, Mia's hand moved. She didn't close the laptop. She simply moved her cursor and clicked. What? What did you do? He whispered, his eyes wide with a new panic, thinking she had sent it anyway. I didn't send it, she said, closing the draft. I just deleted the send command. The draft is saved. The files are backed up on 2 separate cloud servers and a hard drive. I will always have them. She looked at him, her face devoid of any emotion, any triumph. So this is clear. This isn't forgiveness. This is leverage. You make every single payment, on time, in full. You stay away from Mom's credit. You never, ever contact us again unless it is through a lawyer. You honor this agreement for the rest of your life, and this folder stays a private family matter. You miss one payment. You even think about disappearing. And I will send it all. I will always be watching. He understood. He wasn't being set free. He was being put on a permanent leash, held by the child he had underestimated. I looked at him, this gray, broken man, and a profound realization settled over me. I had not once spoken to Lena Hart. I had not engaged in a single, screaming, tear-filled confrontation with the other woman. I had not clawed or fought or humiliated myself. My daughter, with her quiet, cold logic, had identified the real crime. She had aimed her weapons not at the affair, but at the fraud. She had destroyed Lena's career, her finances, and her future from a keyboard, and she had done it without ever leaving her bedroom. The victory was total. It was silent, and it was clean. Eric seemed to realize it all at once. He looked at the papers he had signed, the life he had given away. He had lost his wife. He had lost his home. He had lost his daughter. And he had lost his mistress, who was now being consumed by her own crimes. He had traded his entire world for a fantasy, and he was left with nothing but a pending criminal investigation and a car he was sleeping in. He was truly, utterly bankrupt. He stood up, his movements stiff. He didn't look at us. He didn't say a word. He just turned, a hollow man, and walked to the front door. From the kitchen, Mia closed her laptop. The quiet click of the plastic lid snapping shut was the final sound, a period at the end of a long, terrible sentence. "It's done," she said, not to him, but to me. "That's finished. Now you can go to work on Monday." She looked up at me, a tiny, almost imperceptible softness in her eyes. "And tonight, Mom," she said, "you can go to sleep, in your own bed." The bedroom, the one I had been ordered to leave, the one I had been scrubbing the memory of her perfume from for a week. Eric opened the front door. The gray November light silhouetted him for a moment. He didn't look back. He stepped outside and pulled the door closed. I heard the heavy, final thud as the latch caught. I stood in the silence of my kitchen. This time, no one ran after him. No one cried out. The rage, the grief, the fear that had been churning in me for days, it was all gone. It was replaced by a vast, quiet, cold stillness. I turned and looked down the hallway, toward my bedroom, toward my bed. It was just a room. It was just a piece of furniture, and it was mine. The war was over. Thank you so much for listening to our story. We'd love to know where you're listening from. So please drop a comment below. Share your thoughts, and let's connect. Don't forget to subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and show your support by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.